is Marilyn Maxwell, and I'm with HAR. I'll see if I can make this a little larger so that you can read it. And if you've got questions during class, you're welcome to just ask them at that time. You don't have to hold them to the end or anything like that. And then, of course, once we part ways, you're welcome to email or call. I do teach quite a lot, so email probably would be your best bet to get me quickly. I physically don't sit at my desk hardly ever. My main position, my primary responsibility at HAR is to ironically not be at HAR. I travel and do off-site primarily, so I'm out at a different brokerage every day. So I apologize up front. You'll probably get my voicemail, but then I'll do my best to call you back or email you back just as quickly as I can. And I'll put that back up at the end of class as well. So you'll have that. All right, so just to begin, I went on into Fusion before class started. So you just log into HAR and then click the link that says Enter Fusion MLS. And this will be your homepage or dashboard or landing page. They refer to it in several different ways. And a couple of different kind of housekeeping things to begin with, some default setups and so forth. But just to kind of explain what the gateway is, I think you may possibly be aware already, but basically what the system does is it's auto notification. It'll automatically send properties to your client that meet their basic criteria. You'll put in what they have specified, a price range or shape, size, area of town, whatever it might be, and then from that point forward, it'll automatically check for them and email them properties. There's pros and cons, of course, to automated, right? It'll fit their basic cookie cutter criteria, but if they say they want something like a bright kitchen or an open kitchen, that's difficult to search for in MLS, right? So it may just have 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, but it may or may not have the big bright kitchen. So there is some still reading and weeding through of results that will have to be done on the client's end. Gateway basically means a web page, a custom web page that's set up for them that'll house all of their property results. So anything that's emailed to them obviously will be in their email, but then also posted to this website. On a case-by-case basis, you can customize it to just only send them an email message and not build that web page. If they are just not super tech savvy or they just don't prefer to do that, then you can you can set it up in that way, and I'll show you that as we get to that.
So Marilyn, will it hold all the results that are sent to them over time in that place? Yes, and that's the benefit of the gateway, is anything they've been sent is there. Even once it sells, the address is still listed, but it says in big bold letters, this property is no longer available for sale. So they'll be aware, oh yeah, that was that one on, you know, ABC Street that I loved so much, but it sold already. So they'll have some sort of reference point. They also can categorize the properties on that web page. Favorite, possibility, and the subtle rejects. I love that they got. In Tempo, it's possibility or not interested. But in Fusion, it's reject, apparently. They were unclear. Not interested. So that makes me giggle a little bit. So that gives them a little bit more interactivity. Again, there's same email kind of delivery on both setups. So every day, all day, potentially they're receiving emails about properties. So new listing, price changes, status changes, they'll get an email. But we don't have to choose all those if we don't want.
You do not. That's right. So going into some of those defaults, I set it up big, kind of all-inclusive, and then on a case-by-case basis, I can tweak that. The system default, for instance, on delivery or frequency, they call it, is ASAP. So the moment a new listing, price change, status change, and photos are added for the first time, that's the other notification category, they get an email. There's pros and cons to that, obviously, right? The pro is all day, every day, they're getting notified and updated. The con to that is what? All day, every day, right?
They're going to call me and say,
make it stop. Case by case. Obviously, you got to know your target audience, right? So if there's a client that's going to feel just barraged by that type of communication, you wouldn't want to set them up that way. You can alter that to be once a day, once a week, once or twice a month. I mean, you can spread it out as much as you would like or as is appropriate to that particular circumstance. And again, I'll show you all that once we get a little further in and make sure that you're aware of how to do that. I'm going to start with a couple of little housekeeping setup things. So under Tools, Settings, Contact Website Settings, you'll just want to verify that your email, phone numbers, and all of those contact pieces of information are accurate in the database. This is all pulling from your HAR membership, so whatever we have as your mobile phone or email address or so forth will be what's on this page. So if there's something that's not correct, you can manually change it here, but eventually it'll get overridden by what's in the HAR database. So it would be best if you called and permanently had it changed if your cell phone's not correct or you want to use a different email or something like that. You can't alter the email. You would have to call directly and have that done. And then you can't change it from the screen, though it looks sort of like you can. You have the option to put your photo, and the company logo most likely is already in there, and that's handled up at the broker level. So you might see your broker logo there, but you may not yet have your picture. So once you've made the changes here, you'll click Save. And then right back into that Tools and Settings, Contact Information, Email Preferences, and Images are all the main places that you would go to continue to set up. Again, if you want your picture in the system, My Images is where you would do that. If you choose not to, or you don't yet have your picture, the customer, consumer, client, whatever they are at that point, won't know the difference. It'll kind of fill the white space with your contact information. Once you put a picture in the system, it'll scoot that down so it's nicely spaced and features your picture if there is one, and not if you don't have one. Okay. And then under Email Preferences, that's where you would set up your email signature. And anytime that you're sending anything out through the system, it's always a good idea to have a signature of some sort, especially on these automated type emails. If they get it and it just says, here's a link, and not much more, that's not as helpful potentially as it might be if we included a little bit more information. So I've just got kind of the basics, my name, company name, email, phone numbers, whatever else you would include in a signature. So if you haven't already set that up, which is normally something they walk you through in the Fusion Basic class, but if you hadn't had that experience yet, then you might need to go in there and just double check or set that up initially. And then last but certainly not least, most important to the setup of the gateway or auto notification is the auto notification defaults. All right, so on the auto notification defaults under the settings, this will default to, I think it's 30 or 60 days, but it can go as high as 180. And what that means, notification stops in 180, just simply means the auto notification will stop in up to 180 days, but you're emailed ahead of time. It's 7 days before that happens. You receive an email and it says your client so-and-so is no longer going to receive auto notification unless you tell it to go ahead and re-up it and continue to send the notification. The default I think is 30, and I just simply don't want to have to deal with that every 30 days, so I make it the max that I can is 180. And again, case by case, client to client, I can put whatever number I need to for that particular client. So I'll be broad and general and kind of big in my defaults and make that 180.
Where did you go into?
This is Tools, Settings, still, and then Auto Notification Defaults. And then this, again, we've got the contact website, which I kind of briefly gave you an overview of, and then the email, the simple emailed report. Again, by default, I'm going to keep it on the client gateway page. Case by case, I could switch that over to the simple emails if that's what I wanted to do. Either way, the automation happens at the same frequency. They still get all the property information real time if that's what you choose. The only difference is they don't have the website where everything lives and gets kind of posted, the life of all of their results, and they don't have that option to do the kind of interactivity where they are putting the house in favorite, possibility, and rejects. Okay, no notes, no categories, but still they're delivered detailed property information. Okay, one's living in multiple email messages in their inbox, and one's posted on a web page. Okay, excuse me. So then your next step over, you can either use the next button down here in the lower right, or just click the tab. The frequency, again, by default is ASAP, so real time from MLS, the moment a new listing, price change, status change, or photos added the first time. They'll receive an email. You are carbon copied rather on everything. So again, pros and cons. You know exactly what's going on, but you know exactly what's going on because you're getting a lot of emails potentially. Okay.
So may I make a suggestion here for just a second? If you're working with buyers in a very competitive situation and you want them to be notified ASAP of a new listing, all you have to do is uncheck list price status change photo added, but leave it ASAP, and that way they'll just be notified of new listings that come on.
Correct. I'm going to leave the default with everything marked, but again, client to client, person to person, I can change these to make the most sense for that particular client. Okay? In this market, he's exactly right. Everybody needs to know like 5 minutes ago what's going on, right? Because homes barely get listed before they've got multiple offers, I would assume. So that's, again, what I'll do as my default, but just to go through the other options daily. Happens once a day, first thing in the morning, between about 2-ish and 4-ish in the morning. Pros and cons to that. Again, if I'm sending it first thing in the morning, that's amazing. The very first thing they have when they open their email is an update from me. What's the con to that?
Although some people leave their phone off like that.
Well, and between about 2 and 4, and that's true, the notification coming in at 4 in the morning would wake me up, but the one I was thinking of was if a listing comes on the market at 10 o'clock in the morning, we don't know about it until the very next day when potentially we've missed our shot. Okay, so again, pros and cons, and you can see here you can pick and choose days of the week, so if they only want Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or whatever the situation is, you're able to check that. And then monthly, once or twice a month is another option. And then ironically, never is also an option. You could go through the whole process of putting their name and the search criteria and all of that and then not actually send them anything. I can't think of really a circumstance that I would do that, but there are circumstances where that would be.
Control is important.
That's right. There are circumstances where that would be relevant. And that's how you would stop the notifications. So if they said, oh my gosh, please leave me alone, you've emailed me a million times, or you put an offer and so they don't need notifications right now, they're about to close on a house or whatever, you can switch them from whatever they were, ASAP or whatever, to stop it, right? Turn it off. So that's an option there. And then the other tab or next step is contact email, and it'll always put their name. Super scientific techie stuff here. Anything in square brackets, don't mess with it. Anything in triangle-y brackets, please change it. We'll get to a template here in a minute that has some triangle-y brackets. But this will basically always put their full name. So it would say property matches for Marilyn Maxwell and the timestamp that it went out, 3:22 a.m. or something like that. When I get my carbon copy, now I know immediately who got an update. I may have 10 clients on auto notification, but only that one got updates today. And that may be my super high maintenance client that needs me to be super warm and fuzzy, right? And call them right away and email and follow up, or it may not be. So I know, okay, good, they'll have something, they'll call me if they need me. So just so you're aware of what goes out under your name and what they've received and so forth. They do have a couple of different templates as well. The system default template is what's in there initially. I'd probably recommend that you at least read it, if not change it. The way this works is a little interesting. To preview the template, you have to go into the email template editor. So if you click the little drop down, click template editor, then you'll be able to actually see, grayed out, but still you can see the verbiage of that particular template.
Can I ask a really stupid question?
There's no such thing.
I use Tempo, not Fusion, for this sort of stuff, and I've always stayed, I didn't understand exactly what was going out in Gateway, so that's why I'm sitting here. Is it gonna work the same way in Tempo?
It's mostly the same in Tempo. It's Tempo's the older of the two systems, so it's a more simplistic system. Again, the fundamental difference is the frequency of delivery. It's only once a day between about 2 and 4 in the morning. You don't have any other options there. But the verbiage, there's one template, but you can type whatever you want. So the stock verbiage is in there, but you can type the one template for all of your clients. So for the most part, yes. Probably I'd say 90% yes, it's the same.
Somewhere in all the Fusion talk and classes and stuff, I had the impression that between the two systems, they didn't communicate about prospects, or do they?
Sort of, yes.
One system for a specific reason?
Sort of, yes is the answer.
It's sort of?
Sort of, yes. They don't sync per se. If you put, again, Tempo's the older of the two, but it's also the main database. So if I put people and searches in Tempo, they will copy up to Fusion, but it does not work the reverse of that. If I add a person in a custom search only in Fusion, it does not go back to Tempo. So you can have a copy of some things in two places depending on where you put it in.
Can you edit in Fusion from Tempo? If you are in Fusion and you want to add maybe one of these special things to a specific reason, can you edit from there? Or do you have to?
You can edit. Again, you can do what you could do, customizing, tweaking it. Let's say I want to switch it to ASAP instead of once a day or whatever. I can do that, but it would only affect whatever I have in Fusion. It's not going to change anything I have set up in Tempo. So if it's auto-notifying from Tempo and I make updates and changes in Fusion, they could potentially be getting two different kinds of things. You would either need to disable them in Tempo and activate them in Fusion, or just change what's in Tempo or not, basically. Many possible. It's hard for me to just say yes or no to questions, but yes, there's several possibilities there. But for the most part, think of, like I say, Tempo as the main base. But again, it's more limited in its functionality when it comes to Gateway.
What would happen if I had someone who's really urgent? I needed to update them on them.
You put them in Fusion.
And they might get the same update in the morning.
Worst case scenario, they'd get that one email that was duplicated. That's right, between about 2ish and 4ish in the morning. And they may not even notice that, quite frankly, in some cases.
They ignore it.
That's right. Or they won't realize it's the same time or two different notifications or whatever. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So the templates here, again, I happen to have chosen your personal website, and this is what it says. The system default notification is what will be in there. There's several different properties for you. Buyer, listings, search. So again, just depending on the focus or the scope that you're wanting to focus on. And please, please, please read through that and make sure it says what you would want to say. I don't talk like some of those things. And you can tweak that on a case-by-case. When you get to that particular individual client, you can change. If it's your Aunt Sally, you can put something more personal or whatever. Sorry, Frank, go ahead.
So all you're selecting here is the cover note that's going to go on the search notification. That's it.
Right. The notification that they get to say, here's some new properties.
And it will say, it'll be the same message every single time.
Every time.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. And then last but not least, agent notification is, again, you get a copy of everything or nothing. I would make the default that you get a copy of everything, and then case by case change it to opting out of getting a copy. If you have an investor, for instance, that's looking for, he doesn't care where it is, as long as he gets a good deal, so he's got custom searches in the Clear Lake area and the Kingwood area and Katy, and he's going to get zillions and zillions of emails all day long potentially. You can opt out of getting copies of anything of his and just say, give me a call when you find something, right? He's not one of those that needs warm, fuzzy, maybe attention all the time. So again, default will be setting it all up to get a giant pile of everything, but then we can change that as we need to for our clients, case by case. Okay, make sense? All right, so I'll click save to save all my defaults. And then we'll go off and search and begin the process of putting together the actual, what we would put together for our client, okay? So if we hover on search, you would then pick whatever property class, so single family, townhome, rentals, whatever it might be. I'm going to go into single family just for simplicity's sake. One thing that I'll point out before I go too much further, if you notice when I hover on single family, off to my right, the little pop-out menu, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and you may not have stuff. Those are all my custom saved searches for me. There's two different ways that you save searches. One that's attached to a client, which we're doing today, and the other that's just for your own benefit, that you would manually run. There's no email, there's no notification, no automation. So all of these are just ones that I've put some criterion, clicked save, and then at any point, I can click them on the list and run that and see the current results for that. If it's attached to a client, it does not show up in this list. Okay? It's in the other space where client stuff lives, which is here in the search manager. Okay? It's just a little organizational thing that Fusion does. So anything that's attached to a client will be either in the search manager or accessible through the contact record. And again, yes, I'll show you all that when we get there. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some criteria in. More often than not, they're going to focus on active properties. You could send option pending and pending continue to show, but it's a little, you know, bit of a bummer. Here's a house that's already got an offer. You know, not as fun as just active listings. And again, Frank's point was a perfect point there if we're just trying to keep them up to date on brand new listings that come on the market. Active would be what they're mainly focused on anyway. And then let's put some sort of price range. 250 to 350. Y'all can help me with my criteria a little. What MLS area am I in now? Is that a good price range for this area, 250 to 350? Reasonable? I heard no no's, yes. So we'll keep going.
We have some.
All right, 164 matches, perfect. So I'll keep tweaking that. Obviously, they may not tell you I want to live in Area 15, right? They'll say I want to live in Sterling Ridge or Oak Ridge North or east of the Beltway or, you know, whatever it might be. So you can build different types of criteria. You can put it together as is necessary for that particular client. If you're not already familiar with search by map, I love search by map, super helpful. If you click right here where it says map, you can just draw on the map. This is, again, all of Area 15, so I've got a kind of huge geographic area. As I tweak my criteria and say only a certain number of bedrooms, only a certain year built, maybe stories with a pool, then it's naturally going to pare that down. But you can also come up here to the little bitty tiny pencil. My saying with Fusion is the smaller the icon, the more important it is usually. So look for the tiny little obscure thing. In this case, that would be the pencil. And then you can literally draw on the map. So if they had said they want to be west of 45, south of Rayford Sawdust, or you know, whatever it might be, you can literally just draw a square or a polygon. Or if they say I'm going to work with at XYZ company and I want to be within a certain distance, 2 miles away, I'm going to ride my bike, I'm 2 miles away, you could do a circle and have that as sort of your geography instead of an Area 15 or a subdivision name or a zip code. Okay, so how many of you have ever worked with search by map? Okay, comfortable with it in Fusion or in Tempo?
Fusion.
Okay, so Fusion's slight difference again between the two. They both have this feature. They both have the circle, the square or rectangle, and the polygon. The main difference is the polygon is limited to up to 8 points in Tempo, 30 points in Fusion. So you have a little bit more flexibility in the shape of your polygon and how many different turns or changes of direction you can make.
I never used that over the one above the eraser.
Those overlays are somewhat helpful. They aren't necessarily things you're going to use all the time, but this particular, for instance, the MLS area map, if you're not familiar yet with where 15 or 18 or 22 or whatever, it can kind of just superimpose that over the top of the map. You'll never know all those MLS areas probably. There is no rhyme or reason to them, first of all. They're just random crazy numbers and you just don't work in all of them all the time. So they don't make really any sense, that's right. So again, that's what that would look like if I overlay that. So you can see this is Area 14 and where it starts and stops. The purple is Area 15. This is 35. So again, no rhyme or reason to the numbering.
So if you search by 15, why do you have one in 14?
It's mismarked in MLS.
Yep.
Where is it?
Sawbridge is the street, 104 Sawbridge.
So the agent put it in as 15.
Oh, it's in Creekside.
Or it just,
How do you do that?
yeah, the agent put it in MLS Area 15.
How do you do that? That would be good to know.
Well, if you accidentally did it, then you just made an accident. Or if you made it on purpose, then you broke a rule to try to get people to be able to find it in the Woodlands when it isn't really.
So Marilyn,
Hypothetically.
this might be slightly off topic,
But that's okay.
Could you clear up for me the difference between subdivision and legal subdivision?
Yes. The basic difference is legal has lot and block usually in it, and subdivision doesn't.
So if I'm just looking for Sterling Ridge or Wood Forest, I can use either one?
Correct. The pros and cons to it, though, are more the con. You have to know what it's called in tax. Okay? So, Villages of Panther Creek, what is that called in the tax records? About 3 different things, right? VOPC, or Villages of Panther Creek, or Ville of, okay? So if I search for Panther Creek or Sterling Ridge, I don't think they've made up an abbreviation or an initialism for Sterling Ridge yet, but that's the only kind of con to that, is you may or may not find exactly what you're looking for by writing it out, particularly up in this neck of the woods. Zip code would help.
So you're suggesting to avoid that issue, use the subdivision, not legal subdivision?
Either, though. That applies to either. If I type it in subdivision, that's auto-populated from tax as well. Okay. So when the listing agent put it in, it auto-populated whatever the tax record had as quote-unquote subdivision, as well as legal. And then if they chose to type over that and edit or alter the listing data, they have the ability to do that as well. So. Again,
you can put in multiples though, can't you?
You can put in multiples separated with commas, and if you'll notice right here, again, kind of hiding in plain sight, little bitty icon, contains, does not contain, no S on that, contains all, is not starting with. So right now I'm looking at anything that would contain the word Sterling, for instance. Okay. So that would be Sterling Oaks, Sterling Ridge, Sterling this, Sterling that, but it would have to be in area 15.
Gotcha.
So that helps limit it to only this area.
Right.
Okay, and that's also where the search by map comes in really handy. I don't know what you've called it, but I know it's right here, right? You can just draw a box and say, that's it, just look right there geographically. So again, I'll pick up the polygon just to kind of illustrate that one. I think that's the more common tool, if we can get it to work, polygon. And then you just come to the map and click and let go, and every time you need to change direction, you scoot this a little. And I'm just totally making up a shape here. But you can, for instance, trace I-45. Like I mentioned briefly, they wanted to be, west of 45. I've done that. So when you're done drawing, you just double click to let it know you're done, if you're not right on top of a property. And now that could potentially be the edge of Oak Ridge or Sterling Ridge or Panther Creek or whatever. Okay.
So you just said something. I thought you had to go back to your beginning point to click off.
You don't have to. Okay. You can. That's one way. There's several different ways. You can keep clicking until you hit your 30th point, and then the system will know you're done drawing. But if you double click wherever you're done, when you are done, it'll tell it it's done. Or you can meet back up with the original point and click right on top of that, and that also lets the system know you're done drawing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of different ways you can do that. So again, pros and cons to the geography, right? I have everything in this whole entire polygon, but it may or may not be, I'm going to have a lot of different kind of properties in there potentially on this side of Woodlands Parkway and that side of whatever street that is, Country Forest or whatever street runs through the middle there. So again, you still have to read in pros and cons about sending it out. They're going to get anything that beats this criteria, but it's not necessarily going to be exactly perfectly their dream home every time. Okay, so then coming down a bit further, again, like she said, zip code is a great way to go. Around here, we don't...
Not been screwed up on.
Yeah. Again, there's always room, 99.9% accurate, right? Depending on what the listing agent did or depending on what the tax record showed. 77386 is going to be a... It auto-populates from tax, but they could change that.
Well, that's true. They could not.
They could. I doubt that they would, but they could. Another helpful sort of overlay is a zip code map. So I could see exactly where 380 starts and stops and 386 starts and stops and whatever else I might need to do. It's just going to show you the boundaries. So you can see 382 is there, 389's down there. Obviously, I would just type the zip code that I wanted to stick in, but it's good to know where they are, where they start and stop. Okay. And in the Fusion Advanced class, they talk even more about overlays. A little plug for that class, which I'll be glad to come back and do if you'd ever like me to do that. So So coming on down the list here, again, I could put in bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, stories, pool, all of those other things. I am going to go ahead and clear the shape just because I want to, mostly. I want to keep my results kind of as broad as possible, and I'm a little OCD-ish, so I want to turn all that off and have a clean slate while I'm filling those in. So I'll look for at least 3 bedroom, at least 2 full bath with the pool, which will make probably a pretty significant difference in my results. Okay, so now again, I could go back to the map if I wanted. I could put a subdivision in there. I could put my year built or whatever, but I just want to work with those handful, though they may not be exactly realistic for a customer or client. They're perfect for class. Okay, so I'm going to turn my map feature back off. You just click the map button to turn on that split screen of the map and click it again to turn it right back off. It still remembered my mapping. It's just out of sight, out of mind. And then once I'm ready, I can go view the results. Here at the top, you can either click right on the word results or that little kind of play button, the blue circle with the triangle in it.
Is there a place to remind you where you're searching from? Because sometimes you change your mind in the middle. If you searched it, say, by the map, and maybe I forgot that I searched.
If you go back to criteria,
but there's not like a...
well, you can see on the map, when you're in results, you're only seeing the results. You have to be in criteria to see all your criteria, okay? So if at any time I can go back to criteria, click map, and it'll show me the shape I drew on the map, which again I deleted, okay? But also down here it says criteria summary, and that'll show me the text fields I filled in. So active, 250 to 350, area 15, 3 or more bedrooms, 2 or more bath. I didn't draw on it, but it would say map features. Let's draw on the map.
So if you've erased, that's what I'm getting at. If I've erased my information off of the map, it's not going to show up over here.
I'm not sure what you're...
I see.
Yeah.
That's how you get it to show up.
Yeah. You have to actually have something drawn, which I had not at that point, but it'll always include that. And again, anytime I come back to my criteria and click map, now it'll show me the polygon. So I'll know exactly what I did or didn't draw on that polygon.
Clear the shapes and they're gone.
Right, if you delete the shape, then it's gone. It's not.
Is still there?
The text fields will stay there. Yeah. They're exclusive of each other, but they work together, if that makes sense. So I can have map stuff or I cannot have map stuff, and I can have text fields filled in or I cannot. The results include what fits all of them. So 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and in the place on the map. Okay? So now I have 11 instead of 15 because I included some geography. I drew a polygon there. So now what's the most important part here, do you think? You know the answer, you just don't know you know the answer. Read them, right? Pay attention. What's in them? Is it really, really what my client might want? Or do I need to go back and tweak it a little bit? Should I redraw the map a little? Should I open it up to a different year built range or something like that? Okay, so just make sure that you go through and definitely make sure they're all appropriate in the basics for that particular client. Yes, sir.
I've been trying to remember what you call the green buttons on the left.
He just wants me to say this on camera.
No, I really have been trying to remember.
Well, if you're from Texas, they're chiclets with about 19 syllables. I can't hide my Texas twang. My favorite sentence ever that I get to say is hover on the chiclet. So I try real hard. But yes, that color-coded icon off to the left indicates the status. Green is for active, orange for pendings, red for solds, so on. Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
How come in overlays, like, it doesn't allow me to highlight the zip codes?
It probably says you need to zoom in or zoom out a little further.
They're just gray.
You can't do those.
I just went in there like...
It doesn't off to the right say zoom in or zoom out?
Oh, it does on zip codes, okay.
So then if you double click the map to zoom in a bit further, you'll be able to access that layer. Some of them you can be real far out and some of them you have to be quite far in. So depending on which layer you're trying to use, you may have to zoom in or zoom out.
And then it will highlight, or you'll be...
It'll give you, yeah, it'll give you access to that particular overlay. See how I double clicked and zoomed in a bit and now it's available. All right, so back at our results, again, be very sure that you go through and read them and make sure that all the basic cookie cutter, as I call it, criteria is showing, you know, what you need it to. Make sure you didn't forget something that they had specified. And then when you save it, you do have one shot, that initial sending, you have one chance to not include some properties. Okay, so if you have already shown them this one on Lynette Chase, let's say, they hate it, they never want to hear about it again, why would we send that to them, right? And here's a difference between Tempo and Fusion. Tempo, it's all or nothing, and in Fusion, I have this one chance to eliminate this in the beginning. I can do two different things. I can tell it to reject it, which sounds very harsh and permanent, right? Which, ironically, is actually a temporary thing. When I send properties, I can just simply not check this one, and they will never hear about it again. They'll never know if the price changes, new photos, anything at all. They'll never hear about it. If I reject it, it puts it kind of out of sight, out of mind in their reject category. They can go in and unreject. I'm still not sure that's a word, but they use it, so I will. They can go in and unreject at any time, right? The house may become more and more attractive as the price goes down. Or they realize there's nothing else on the market or whatever. So I can tuck it away and say, well, you don't have to be, you know, falling over it every day with emails and notifications, but you can unreject and start receiving notifications by email if you want. Okay?
We're only talking about gateway. We're not.
No, anything that you email. It can be the simple email notification or the gateway notifications. You have the chance. The one shot, the pros and cons, again, I don't every time get to preview them first and eliminate some. It's just this one shot right out of the bag when I'm first setting it up that I can categorize things on their behalf. Okay? But that's good initially, in a way. Okay? So if I go right here to Save Search, let's say I've painstakingly read through these. They're all amazing, except I'm going to pretend, again, like they hate number 8, so I'm not sending that one. Okay? Right here where it says Save Search is where you go to save the search. That part, thankfully, is